Hello everyone, this is Imran. Today we'll be looking at what's new in HyperWorks for browsers. So let's get started. In loading the data in browsers, that's around 70% time reduction compared to previous versions. This will be seen in various browsers like model browsers, subsystem, include, and solver browsers. And this is going to be the more when you have larger model data. For example, in the image you can see that it's a model with around 9.5 million elements, and for model browser, its time is reduced from around 7 to 2. And especially for includes and subsystems, where we have a lot of organization to be done across includes and subsystem. Earlier, it used to take a lot of time. Now it's drastically reduced in larger magnitudes, and the same for Solver browser. So this should help in the overall model load and import time as well. Then the next thing is we have supported the embedded entity editor in the floating create entity dialog. And now user can directly review and edit the referenced attributes within the same dialog without having to switch across multiple windows. Then some of the parameter context menus in the EE have now been renamed and regrouped under pull right for the ease of use while you're parameterizing or unparameterizing the values through EE. And the restoring of browsers, especially for post subsequent invokes, has now been corrected, and now all the browsers come up at once, and we indicate that uh, using the restore browser message in the status bar. So yeah, these are some of the things that I wanted to highlight. And yeah, if you are not already on 2022, then I think it's a good reason to get onto it. Okay, moving on to 2022.1. We have added the feature to populate the browsers on demand with the selected content. Then there is the attribute column support for list selectors. Then we have added the filtering support in ID Manager. Then again, there are a lot of performance enhancements in this version as well. We'll go in detail. And then embedded E has been supported in ANSYS interface, and there are a couple more things that we'll look into it. Okay, to start with, the earlier versions, especially to deal with elements and nodes kind of entities, which are going to be huge in number, uh, there was no straightforward way user had to kind of increase the threshold limit and then work with all of those elements available in the browser, even if you wanted to just review some of them. So this has been addressed now, and with this feature, now user can select which entities that they want to see in the browser. Um, so especially for these kind of unnamed entities, elements and nodes, we kind of give a user message there in the browsers if the limit is more, and then user can use the uh, context directly to select the entities and then have those populated in the browser. So a quick click of that feature here. So as soon as I click on the elements folder, we post the entity view, and more or less almost all the time there are going to be more than the threshold limit we have. And so the message indicates user that it has to be, they can use the context to select the entities. And in these kind of situations for these entities, we automatically post the context, so user can go ahead and select the entities that they want to populate in the browser. And they can either use the play button or the check button. Once if they use the play button, the content is populated in the browser and the context is still up, so that you can change the selection again if you want to do it. And using the check button with different selection will obviously close the context, and the entities will be populated in the browser. The next time the same context is invoked again by clicking on the select entities button, we push the existing entities selection to the context. So user can pick some more entities and then append it to the existing selection. And here you can see that the select entities button remains highlighted. This is a kind of to indicate that the content that you are looking in the browser is not complete. It's a subset of the selection that you have made. And the reset browser view button can be used if you wanted to completely reset the browser and start from the scratch. And user can actually start with the idle selector as well, and then go into the context, and the same selection will be pushed to the select entities context. Okay, here, not just from the graphics, we have all the available selection methods. For example, I can use that one selection to pick by config and populate those entities in the browser. And once the entities are populated, then you can work normally how you would generally work with the entities. You can add any of the existing attributes as a column, for example, here, dependent nodes, and you can directly edit them as you would do it from the EE using the selectors. Then the filtering works as usual, but in this case, it's going to work on the content that's already available in the browser, not the entire content. I can pick multiple entities and edit and do bulk editing here. In this case, I'm changing the DOFs for the selected elements. So similarly for nodes, also I can pick the required nodes that I want to work with, um, and then post that everything remains same as we have seen. And one quick point I wanted to highlight here is related to the limit that we have now. So you can see that when the count was less than 1,000, you had both play and check button available, so you can proceed. But as soon as you select more than 1,000, it's going to be grayed out. So currently the limit is set to 1,000, and it's going to increase. We are going to enhance that in the next versions by taking care of some more things. But for now, if there is a case where you would want to have more than 1,000 entities in the browser, you can change that from the configuration dialog from the model browser. So once I increase here, now I can pick entities more than 1,000. So not just for unnamed entities, though we anticipate it to be used, this feature to be used more for these kind of entities, but we have kept it open for the generic entities as well, so that if you want to work with a subset of entities, say one assembly or a subsystem, you can pick only those related entities and work with the browser. And similarly, for all entities that have a flat list entity view, you will see the browser selection feature supported for that. In this case, I'm just trying to pick entities based on the card image and have only those in the browser. Okay, and in these kind of entities, when I reset the browser, we take you back to the entire list, because these are not controlled by the threshold limit. And the last thing here is we have the shortcuts, the global common shortcuts for the guide bar context that everywhere works. The same thing, spacebar for the advanced selection, middle mouse or enter for accept, and escape for the exit. And one more thing I wanted to highlight here is this is supported only for the flat list entity views today, and going forward, we could support this for the hierarchical views as well. Okay, next up is attribute column support for the list selectors. So any list selector or an array selector that is that kind of selects more than one entity type can now be added as column to the browser. That also includes the main and secondary fields of a contact, and now you can add them to the browser and review and edit them. Quick look of that here. So when I open the contact browser or groups view, I can select the main and secondary either from EE or from the attribute dialog and add it, and review them for all the entities at once. I can even change it directly from the browser column itself. using the advanced selection dialog. And not only this, I can add the multiple entity selector as well. For example, I can directly add the elements and directly even edit it from the browser itself. Let me just switch to this particular view. And now I can click in the browser. The same selector is posted here as well. And I can add, remove the elements for the segments. And if I wanted to kind of reverse the normal, since it's the same selector, you can do that from the browser as well. You can pick all these elements and reverse the normals. And again, the same sorting, filtering remains as usual. You'll be able to work with these columns like the generic columns that have been supported. And now just for context, any entity that has a multiple entity selector can you can add that as a column to any entity view, and you can directly change or modify the data directly from the browser columns itself. Another example here is for optimization constraints, where you can also add the list of load steps and then review and edit from the browser. Okay. Next is the filtering support in ID Manager. Now we have added the filtering support in ID Manager with all the autocomplete, column filters, and predefined filters, so that the includes or the pools can be directly drilled down using these features, and then you can do your ID management. Again, a quick look here. We have the search bar. Clicking on that will give you the automation, auto populate the columns. Here I'm picking the entity type based on the entity type. I'm filtering all the materials. Then the legacy way also, I can just try to search the required the include or the entity, and then I can, for example, define the min and max range here and do all the ID management operations as usual. Then you can use a column filter as well to drill down to one particular ID pool across all includes here. Then for numeric columns, I can use any of the operators and then do a filtering based on that. Then even for the columns that have an icon or an image as the value, those can also be filtered directly from the column filters. And last is the string-based columns, even those can be filtered, and all of these can be done together as an advanced search string as well. Then the predefined filters, you can use the current filter to drill down to the current include, then check all the modified includes or have only those in the ID manager using that filter. And then you can use the selected filter also to just work with the selected includes. And a quick note here is the option to allow duplicate IDs and correction has now been moved under this hamburger. Okay, on the performance side, there have been massive performance enhancements again in .1 as well. This time it's related to context menus invoking, especially when you have models with higher number of nodes and elements and all other entities. The invoke speed for posting context menus was slow earlier, and now it has been improved by around 60 to 80%. So even for huge models, you should see the context menus come up real quick now. Then the next up is the performance for organizing data under includes and subsystems. In cases where you're creating new subsystems by, say, dragging and dropping includes or directly picking the entities and creating a subsystem. In those cases, now you should see a better performance by 20 to 40% improvement there as well. Then there was a performance issue with the building up of EE for load step entity, especially when you have a lot of references referred under them. Now it should be fairly quick. Then under embedded EE, we have now supported embedded EE for ANSYS interface as well. It's now this should facilitate reviewing and editing of the referenced entities from the same entity editor itself, avoiding having to switch across the multiple dialogues. So you can review and edit the data in the same entity editor itself. So this is just an example image. It's not just for contacts here. Any entity that has any reference attributes or reference entities, those can be directly reviewed and edited in the entity editor itself. Then for the context menu order, we have now made it consistent across the entity, across the folders. So now it has a consistent order list, so that you find most of the options at fairly the same place, so that you can easily find them using the muscle memory. And this is also across browsers, so you will find the same context menu order irrespective of which browser you are using. Uh, Then there is an API that we have added now. I just wanted to highlight here because it could help here a lot of users who are in customization and scripting. Uh, so it's a HM browser update. It's going to help or prevent the browser update when you are running your scripts, and then at the end you can actually um, update the browser. So it's just an example image here where I'm trying to delete includes along with its content. I'm doing it for the bulk operation of around 50 includes, so I just use the APIs above and below the procedure, and it's going to block the browser update, and once the deletion of the includes are completed, the browser is updated, and you have the updated data. Okay. So overall, in this release, there are around 30 enhancements and more than 115 bug fixes. So this is just for browsers, and overall in the product, these numbers are going to be really huge. So yeah, this is one more reason for you guys to move to .1 as soon as possible. So that's all that we have for today. Hope these features will help you in your day-to-day work, and thanks for your time.